Welcome, IT changemakers, to the DEX Show with Tim Flower and Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
Hello, changemakers, and a happy 2025. We hope you had a wonderful, wonderful holiday season. It is, as you know, the first DEX show within a show, which is those special Reality Bytes episodes where we speak to fascinating Nexthinkers, and we know of no more fascinating a Nexthinker than our Chief Product Officer, Sam Gantner. Welcome back to the show, Sam. Lovely to have you.
Wow, what an intro, Tom. Thank you for setting up the expectation. It's great to be here today.
And we had Tim and I recently got the chance to talk to you on a webinar that did extremely well about the DEX tipping point, and that was a bit more of a retrospective about 2024. And I know a lot of people really enjoyed it. We are going to keep our eyes focused on the new year here today, but just to begin, Sam, just as a quick recap. On a personal / professional note, if you know what I mean, how was 2024? Pretty special, right?
Look, actually, I don't mind. We can share a little bit personal stuff, right?
Cool. Let's do it.
2024 is one of these years that I'm going to look back with a smile, I think.
Okay.
Many things happened. It went by very quickly. But, with the family, we decided to settle down in a place. So that was
Nice.
great to finally find a place that we can call home. I got back into lightweight coding,
Cool.
something that I haven't done in a while. Just a little bit as a hobby, but it's pretty cool, you feel smart again when you go back into coding.
Yeah.
And find some time to do some sports. So yeah, it was a great year. And we can talk also professional later. There's a lot of things that happened in Nexthink, right?
There are a lot of notable events in our organization and our industry, and I think we will indeed pick up on some of those. But great to have you back, and I know everybody always lines up, Sam, with lots of questions for you. So I will hand it over to Tim, who has the first of those.
So put you in the hot seat, Sam. One of the toughest things for me in this role, after being in IT for so long, is staying on top of change. What EUC teams are using to manage, what hurdles they're running into, what new technology is out there. You play a critical role in solving those problems. So how do you stay on top of technology evolution? Is it tech press and media? Is it analyst reports or research, or is it just intuition? How do you and the team at large understand and stay on top of technology that's changing?
Yeah, well, I can tell you, Tim, what works for me. I guess everybody's a little bit different, right? So personally, I love books, but more for my personal entertainment, right? So I love reading, but it's more in that topic. What I really like to do to keep up to speed with what's happening in the market is actually talking to people and taking notes. So I try to talk to IT leaders, analysts. My team were spending a lot of time doing research in various means, customers, other Nexthinkers. I mean, we have such brilliant people in the company. And, I think that's for us, or for me at least, is one of the best way to learn, because not only you get the data, you get the facts, but you also get the interpretation of people and how they're living through those facts, right? The other thing that I started doing this year is to use ChatGPT a little bit more.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know if you use it, but there's the smart voice mode, the advanced one, and it's really like having a conversation with somebody, right? So sometimes I will be driving in the car and maybe I'm into traffic, I have a long drive, and I'm thinking about DEX, I'm thinking about IT, and I have a question. It's like I want to explore something, and so I was just start having a conversation with GPT.
Wow.
And you always kind of have to be a little bit careful, because is it hallucinating? Is it not hallucinating? What are the sources? But it gives you idea that, you can take later on and then explore. So that's pretty cool for me.
It actually highlights a point that Gartner made, is that some of the most benefit of a tool like ChatGPT comes to people who are senior in their role, because they're able to tell the difference between good and bad data that comes back, right? A junior person who hasn't been in the role very long could ask ChatGPT something and just take the content that it gives it verbatim and not really understand how to use it and if it's accurate or not. So I can see how it would be a really good tool for you and for others that have been doing things for a while.
Yeah, totally. And,
Yeah.
and by the way, I also use it for my personal interest, right? The other day, I had a 15 minutes conversation about how mitochondria work in human cells. Nothing to do with my job or something like that, but it was just interesting from a scientific point of view,
Yeah, that's cool. So we touched on a little bit about, Tom did earlier, about changes in our technology, advancements that we're working on. We spent a lot of time and money getting Infinity to where it needed to be, and migrating off of our legacy platform. Now that that's behind us and we're innovating on top of Infinity, it's got to be more rewarding for you and the team to really put that innovation on top of a really great platform. As you look at 2024, what was kind of the standout moments or achievements that brought you the most satisfaction, whether it's product or something else at Nexthink?
Yeah, there are a few things. Actually, one is really related to this Infinity transition because this is a year where we're basically finished, right? So it's more than 90%. It's going to be completely done by March. And, the moment where one of our customers with 750,000 endpoints completely transitioned and we proved the platform at that scale. I mean, we knew, but in that case, we really saw it working. That was a huge satisfaction. It's like, okay, we made it. We made it with Infinity. That is done, right? That was really cool. Another thing is more on really the way that my team is operating. And, in the past few years, about half my team was focused on innovation and discovery. So discovery being, the activity of understanding what is worth building and the way that we need to take the company forward. And the other half was very focused on execution excellence to complete this Infinity transition, right? And now that we're done with that, it was a great opportunity for this half of the team that was focusing on execution to learn and to become exceptional around doing discovery. And that was a very cool journey to live with them, to work with them through that. And they brought a lot of change, a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm across the folks. And then, maybe the last thing I like to think in threes, obviously, is AI, right? We're spending more than 30% of everything that we do is AI based, right? And it's just crazy. I mean, it's crazy how fast you can go, how fast is the progress. Things that until a few years ago, you were saying, okay, this is going to require 2 years of development. We need to put so many people. Now you get 2 fresh grads, and after 3 weeks, you have it. And it's like, wow, so many opportunities. So many opportunities.
Very cool.
Hi, Sam. Megan here.
Hey, Megan.
Hi, Sam. So nice to have you on the podcast again. It's always really refreshing and kind of exciting to hear your perspective on everything going on, because you're really obviously in it on a different level. One exciting thing I think for all of us this year in 2024 was the acquisition of Appler for Nexthink. Yeah, that like huge growth for the company, right? Huge opportunity and an entirely new product and new technology. So I think for all of us, it was a super exciting step to kind of be a part of. But as you are thinking about that, what are you seeing as the next steps for this technology that we've acquired? And how do you see this digital adoption space intersecting with the DEX space that we've created here at Nexthink?
Well, the first thing that is coming is the launch in Q1 of the integrated product, right? And this is where we took all the goodness from Applearn and made it part of the Infinity platform in a completely seamless way. And now it seems that it's just technical stuff, right? But in reality, it's unbelievably powerful because we're basically taking DAP and adding Infinity on top of that. And the results is 10 times bigger. So there are some incredibly powerful synergies that are coming out of that. To give you a couple of examples, right? One is Engage. So in the past, DAP was always kind of constraints within the realm of one application. And the most fundamental aspect, which is driving adoption to that application in the first place, you couldn't achieve it. Now with Engage, you can fix that, right? You can work cross-application, you can work in the operating system. So it's a great way to drive that initial emphasis to get into that, right? Or think about workflows. We have one of the most advanced automation platforms in the planet. Think about if we put that in the hands of all the employees to automate things, right? We have incredible synergies that we're starting to explore, and I think will lead to absolutely incredible value. And then you also get all the rest of the stuff out of the platform, like alerts, dashboards, connectors. So all the things that are coming for free because you're inside of Infinity, now you can make them available to people using digital adoption. For instance, I'll give you an example. You can baseline how much people are using the application, and if you see a drop or an increase, you can get an alert about that, right? That's a relatively simple thing, but it's very powerful if you're responsible for this application and you need to understand what is going on. That's a part of that. Then the other thing is, you were asking, Meg, what does it mean for the broader DEX space in the future? And I think here, when you look into that, maybe there's an opportunity to also verticalize, adopt a little bit. So if you think about that until today, everything that we did in DEX was very much industry agnostic. So the way that a manufacturing company consumes DEX or the way that a financial institution consumes DEX, yeah, the apps, they change a little bit. Some of the things are slightly different, but 95% is kind of the same because IT faces somewhat the same challenges, right? When you think about Adopt, it's actually pretty different though, because Adopt for HR might be very different from Adopt for a consulting company or Adopt for software developers, because the need for these different populations are different, right? Developers, the only thing that they care about is maximizing the time that they spend coding. Consultants, maybe they need to prepare for this very important meeting and they want to make sure that everything is perfect before that because, they cannot miss that. In HR, maybe things like onboarding become more important, or understanding what is the future of the physical and virtual workplace and how to manage all of that. So I think we have this opportunity to get a little bit more vertical, which is going to open a lot of opportunities. And apart from that, it's also extremely interesting from an exploratory topic, if you want.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That makes you feel very curious to explore all the different ways that you could apply that, right? It's very, that's an intriguing idea. Another intriguing idea you presented was on stage at Experience, where you and Pedro delivered a really exciting and cool keynote for those of us that were in the audience. And one of the new ideas you guys introduced was the concept of zero tickets being actually a reality. Could you share some of the highlights of this journey to zero tickets as you guys see it, and the timeline that you might envision for it?
Yeah, totally. I think you nailed the keyword there, journey, right? It's a journey towards zero ticket, and it's gonna take some time. We need to acknowledge that. For me, it's composed by three main activities that we can grow at the same time. The first one is proactive. And that's, by the way, the reason why most companies go for a DEX solution. By being proactive and by addressing the fundamental health of your environment, that's something that in the long term is going to dramatically decrease tickets. Making sure that Intune is up and running, making sure that your security tools are okay, making sure that things are up to date. Those are fundamental things, right? And if you don't do that, you don't see a ticket right away. You don't see an incident right away. But down the line, it's going to lead to problems 2-3 months down the line, right? And you know about that. So the first aspect is automating this foundational state that is always healthy, always up and running, to make sure that you can guarantee that. So that's the first line of defense. The second one is, at a certain point, unfortunately, something bad is going to happen, right? And at that point, as an employee myself, what I want is just to, open a very smart assistant, describe my problem, and get the solution delivered to me in 20 milliseconds. I had a problem the other day with Zoom. I mean, my sound wasn't working anymore. And I just typed in our prototype, fix the sound. and he restarted the audio driver in macOS and did a couple of things, and the problem was gone. And it was great because I didn't have to reboot the whole machine. And the reason for that is not that reboot is a big problem. I knew that it would have solved the problem, but it would have taken me a few minutes. And I was in meeting. I didn't have the time to reboot and lose all my documents and this kind of thing. So this immediate self-service support that is very smart, very actionable, at least for a certain category of problems, is absolutely great. And then the last part is, how do we completely automate the most complex things, the ones that at the end of the day do require a ticket, do require a service desk? And this is, this autopilot project that we're launching today. By the way, it's available right now in technical preview. We're deploying it across the board. So if everybody is interested, they can just reach out. This is going to go step by step. We're going to start by automating tasks within the service desk, by providing a diagnosis of the problem, and by providing a recommended resolution plan together with the automation that goes with that. And down the line, we can completely automate these processes in what we call autonomous mode. So it's very, very exciting. Look, my prediction, do you want the prediction?
Yes,
do you want
definitely.
me to share numbers?
Absolutely.
I can try, because I was thinking about that. And my objective would be to say, in 2025, we get rid of 50% of the tickets. In 26, 75, and by 27, we're at 90% plus.
Nice.
How does that feel?
Sounds good.
You heard it here first, everyone.
Feels a little low, Sam, if I'm being honest with you.
Well, Tim, you're the one coming from the industry, so 90% by 27 is too low. We need to.
I don't think you'd have ever got Tim's tickets down that low.
We hit 80% reduction in about a year and a half with no automation.
So come on, Sam, keep up.
Okay, we need to be more ambitious. All right, I'm going to revisit the numbers.
We can beat that. Hi, Sam. Dina speaking.
Hey, Dina.
So speaking of experience and the automations in place, the buzz around Flow was incredible. What's the focus for Flow in the coming year, and where do you see its biggest impact?
Okay. Well, maybe I start with the second part, the biggest impact. The biggest impact is that Flow removes manual steps, completely removes manual steps, right? And that's really the value. At the end, it's very simple to articulate, which is pretty cool. Now, the focus, there is a lot of things that we're working on. First of all, we just want to make it simply better. So we're working on a bigger library so that you're going to have more remediations coming out of the box, being suggested proactively based on the environment that people have. We're adding more functions within Flow. Those are the blocks that we call thinklets, where basically you can connect to external systems or things like that. We're working on a thinklet to have code inside of Flow. So that's for advanced scenarios. We're going to work on GenAI-based generation of flows. And the other thing that we're working on is a ton of additional connectors, because as people set up the foundations in the core ecosystem, then you start to see opportunities around other applications that are part of IT and beyond, and you want to be able to very easily connect to that. And then, now that this is all in place, I think the focus for companies will really going to be around operationalizing that. They did the obvious things, and now by brainstorming and by looking opportunities, we're finding things that are unbelievably relevant and exciting. I just give an example. I was talking to a customer the other day, and they have 2,000 desktop applications that they need to somewhat get under control for their employees. 2,000 desktop apps. And it blew my mind because I thought that nobody has that desktop apps anymore. But in reality, they're all over the place. It's still something that's important. And the problem with that is vulnerabilities. So they do security scans, and they find a ton of vulnerabilities around that they need to remediate. But then how do you fix it? So you can upgrade the application, but are you even entitled in the upgrade? Because sometimes you don't have the right license. And so we're looking at Flow, which is going to consume the results of the vulnerability scans, is going to validate if the application is still being used, not only installed, but is it actually used. It's going to check with the employees if there is an alternative by starting a conversation. And then if it's not needed, it's just going to remove it, problem gone. If it's still needed, it's going to correlate that with software asset management, understand if there is an entitlement, and then provide a recommendation. And with that, we can get rid of 75% of the very tedious, complex, and error-prone manual work that is behind that. And that's an amazing use case. And when you dig a little bit, when you just have a conversation with people and you start asking, okay, what are the manual things that you do that are a pain? You find there are hundreds of use cases like that. So imagine the potential that we have with that.
There's plenty, and the more you dig into the use cases and operationalization aspect of things, the more you see that there's the little bricks, they're there, but you need to focus bigger on the journey and how we take them through the journey to actually get them to be more successful. Again, at Experience, you and Pedro also previewed the VDI experience. Can you share the timeline for its rollout and what excites you the most about this product in particular?
Yeah, the timeline is right now. We're rolling out as we speak. Is available to everybody. The technical preview is almost finished, so it's available very soon in general availability. If anybody is interested, they can just reach out and we can work together. What is exciting me about this is that we're finally have a solution for a population that was neglected until today in some ways. And I'm talking about the VDI specialists. They're getting blamed from everything. As soon as there is a problem that it touches the VDI space, people go straight with the specialist and they tell them, you have a problem with VDI. It doesn't matter if it's the network of your thin client. It doesn't matter if this is application. It doesn't matter if it's the weather that is behaving badly outside. They're gonna get blamed because VDI is complex and nobody has the ability to troubleshoot and understand what is going on. And so these people, they get so much stuff that is incoming, and they need to analyze all of that. And this is tedious and this complex and it takes time. And so finally, we have a solution for them. We have something that in a second, they can understand where the problem is located. And maybe it's just that the person that is connecting to the environment has a bad Wi-Fi. But finally, they're going to be able to point that out in 1 second and to do something about that, right? And sometimes it is going to be very complex VDI problems related to the environment and the capacity and a login storm that is creating problems across different users accessing the same hardware and physical resources. And they're going to be able to troubleshoot that too. So they're going to be able to see this global view. So I think at the end, it's really the ability of helping these people that until today they were operating in a very complex and almost blind scenarios, having to do manual correlation across different sources of truth and trying to figure out what's going on. All of that is over.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, Ren.
I know, along with all of these really exciting new products, a recurring topic in our DEX discussions recently has been its potential to be embraced and valued by non-IT teams like HR. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Do you see HR or other teams playing a larger role in DEX adoption?
Absolutely. Actually, I want to tell you a little story. I was in Amsterdam a few weeks ago visiting some customers, and I had the opportunity of spending a couple of hours in this fantastic organization. And there's something special there because HR and IT merged together. So they're the same team. And it's incredible. It was the most enlightening things that I've seen in a while. It's incredible because, first of all, you get people that are unbelievably complementary to each other. So you take people from HR with a very human-centric background, right? And then you get people from IT that have a very engineering-centric background. And when you put them together, you discover something that is extremely powerful because they complement each other. And they as a team, they gain the ability to solve problems in a much deeper way and different way with respect to what maybe they could be able to do separately. Now, I understand, probably that's not the future for all companies, right? But I think if we look at that, there is really good reason to think about bringing HR and IT closer together, even if they remain separate teams. The other aspect around that, when you start to look into those things, is that when you look at the metrics that we collect, 80% of them are very relevant to helping HR. For instance, HR has a lot of problems. Like, how do you design the workplace of the future? With people working from home a certain percentage of the time. Maybe you have a common day at the office, so you have peaks of people at the office, so you need to think about that capacity. You need to structure your conference room. You need to structure the workplace. And if you don't have data around what are the habits of people to consume that workplace, then it gets very hard, right, for them to do that. Or think about employee onboarding. When you hire somebody, the onboarding journey is probably the most important thing that you can imagine. So if you can optimize the first 2-3 weeks for people, they get to the office, they get a device, they get a login, they get the right applications, everything works, they get introduced to the right people to create their network, you can save months to get to the point where people are actually able to contribute. You can also avoid a lot of frustration, because when that doesn't work, as a new employee, you could feel lost very, very quickly, right? And you could feel neglected by the company. So imagine how you can optimize that. Or think about another aspect today that I think is going to be very relevant for our lives, which is with all of this AI coming in, how do we manage our relationship with AI? How do we manage enabling people to understand how to use AI, when AI is appropriate? What do they need to be careful about AI? And different persona, different population are going to have very different needs around that, right? So some of the metrics that we collect will help HR to understand this, and maybe to provide or to help IT address some of these considerations. What do we provide to whom and in which way, and how do we enable these people? So there is a lot of things that we can think about this space. It's something that we're exploring with some very forward-looking customers when it comes to that. But I'm very excited about the opportunity of, at the end of the day, being able to help employees even more compared to what we're doing today.
Yes, absolutely. I'm also super excited about those opportunities, and recently spoke to a customer who's trying to do exactly what you're describing, right? Using our product to really understand and plan for the adoption of AI, which I think is incredibly exciting. And you've mentioned AI now a few times in terms of how you use it, in terms of how you think it'll really speed things up for a lot of people. I'm wondering if you can talk to us a little bit more about how you think emerging technologies in general, but AI specifically, will potentially play a role in both making very sophisticated software like ours more accessible to wider audiences, or otherwise transform the different roles that adopt and drive digital employee experience.
Absolutely. I think one of the fundamental things about AI is that it allows software to become intent driven rather than being procedure driven. I'll give you an example, right? Whenever
Ooh, I
you
love
start to
that.
use whenever you start to use a new application in a traditional way, you need to understand the design philosophy of this application. You need to understand a few fundamental concepts of this application, right? I mean, anybody who tried Excel for the first time, they open it up and say, like, oh, what is this thing? It's super complex, right? Okay, you have cells and formulas, and then you use the equal sign, and you do all of these things to get to what you need at the end. And that takes a considerable level of cognitive effort. And especially for complex applications, you end up in a situation where people maybe use 5% of the functionality of this application, just because it's very hard unless you're spending all your day there to understand everything, right? And so they're not really taking advantage of these apps. Now, what AI brings, if it's implemented correctly, is that it transforms the needs to understand this concept into something that it's much, much simpler. Because then the user that is accessing this application can just say, what is the outcome that they want? And then GenAI does the transformation, right? It knows how to use the application to achieve this outcome, and it just provides the outcome. So if you take the example in Nexthink, we're investing heavily into Assist. And if I want to understand how many people are experiencing crashes of Outlook in Paris, I can just write that. tell me how many people have crashes of Outlook. I don't need to go and understand that I need to do an investigation and add the columns. As easy as we made that in the UI, it's not that complex, but we can completely remove that cognitive step that people have to take. And so this means that for me, AI can play a role of democratizing access to things that are otherwise too complex for people. And so they will open up many, many opportunities for us as people to do more compared to today. Now, that comes with risks. It comes with many changes. I mean, what we're living is probably going to be bigger than the Industrial Revolution, right? So we need to face that as a society, because I think there are many consequences of that.
Wow. What a convo so far, Sam. Anybody listening to the show, they can go to the show notes. They can download last year's amazing Forrester New Wave Report or Wave Report and Gartner's Magic Quadrant for themselves free of charge. And, there was a great wave of pride about both reports in the at Nexthink this year, of course, or last year, I should say, based in no small part by our positioning on the graphs and the quadrants themselves. We were standout leaders in both studies, and I'm interested. I mean, it's not a poison chalice at all, but it brings pressure, right? If you make such an impact on these studies, if you make such an impact on this market, there's a pressure that we all feel that we want to maintain that, extend it, sustain it. What is the secret, in your view, to doing so, to keeping this momentum going and solidifying our leadership in the space?
In some ways, maybe the key ingredient here is not focusing on that at all in the first place, right?
Sure.
So I think the reason why we got there is not because we focus on that as a goal, but rather because we focused on building the best possible product for our customers, right? And it was somewhat a relentless pursuit of generating outcomes and never being satisfied with the level of value that we create for the customers. And always asking ourselves, okay, how can we generate more? How can we be more relevant? How can we help them more? And keep thinking about that. And, I think a great product manager is somebody that is fundamentally unsatisfied in life, which is a little bit depressing if you think about that. But you need that, right? Because if you're too happy, then you're gonna stop innovating. Mm-hmm. So I think that's how we got there. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to continue to do that. We need to continue to work closely with these incredible thought leaders that have taken us so far, and continue to imagine what is it that they're going to need 2-3 years from now, rather than what is just coming in front of us. And then putting the right focus, taking the right risks, putting the right emphasis on making sure that we invest those things. And maybe some of them are not going to pan out and we're going to abandon them, but it's only by taking those risks and doing those activities that you take the conversation forwards as an industry.
Contentment can breed complacency, for sure.
Absolutely.
So it is January of the new year, Sam. We'll be asking all our guests this, Tim and I, for a few weeks to go. Could we wrap up with some predictions, please? What workplace trends do you anticipate in 2025? And are there any trends you think are underrated or indeed overhyped out there at the moment? You might want to add a comment on. You can take any aspect of that question or all of them together as you like, so.
Yeah, somehow I was expecting that question, right?
You saw it coming. Yeah, we're nothing if not predictable. Thank you.
So here it comes, the 3 predictions of Sam for 2025. So let's think about that. First one, I think, might seem obvious, but massive shift towards executing on automation. I think in the past, we set up the infrastructures, we set up the tools, we started getting used to the idea that we need to automate everything. Now all of that is in place for many companies, right? So the emphasis now and the focus is going to be to go from 10% automation to 60% automation. So to dramatically bring that up, at least I hope to see that. For sure, it's something that we're encouraging our customers, but we're also looking internally in our own efficiency, in our own processes, it's a very relevant topic for a software company. So that's the first one. The second one, I think we're getting through the AI disillusionment moment. It was very hyped, right? And now we're realizing that, okay, but across all of that hype, what does really change and really where is the value? And now we're getting to the point where the actual value is starting to emerge. So, it's at the same time disillusionment, but getting also the first concrete results, very, very tangible that are going to come out with AI, at least for those who made the right investments, right? And, maybe the people that are lagging behind, they're going to start to realize that they need to invest a little bit more in that topic, because it's going to start to create a competitive differentiator for many companies. And then I think the third is, and it's maybe a bit separate, but I see a shift towards better security, zero trust, but also, things like getting rid of passwords, having a few more controls in place, also because of the dangers coming from AI, right? So until today, think about the whole document sharing thing. Most of the security of document sharing and confidentiality was given to the fact that it was kind of security by obscurity, right? People could access it, but it's such a mess of documents everywhere for everybody that, nobody really takes the time. Now, AI is indexing everything, right? So we need to be much more diligent on who do we disclose with whom, when, and so on and so forth, because anything that is written down could be indexed by AI and shared very broadly if we don't have the right security controls in place. So I think it's going to be very important to focus on that, to guarantee that we don't have big problems coming down the way. So that's it. Those are my 3 top predictions. What do you think? They're going to come true?
I think they're excellent predictions and a fascinating discussion, a wonderful way to kick off the DEX show for 2025. Sounds like it's going to be a very exciting year for the digital workplace, for the digital employee experience space, and no doubt for Nexthink, and of course the DEX show as well. So thank you so much, Sam, for joining us once again. Listeners, as I mentioned, you can download those Forrester or Gantner reports if you haven't seen them next in the show notes. And I will also put a link to the chat that Tim and I had with Sam if you want to hear some more of his thoughts on the DEX tipping point that took place last year. Sam, thank you so much.
To make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. If you'd like to learn more about how Nexthink can help you improve your digital employee experience, head over to nexthink.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.